A car bomb in the heart of Delhi. A doctor, a healer, turned into a terrorist. This isn't just the story of one attack. It's about unraveling a plot that was supposed to be so much worse. We're going to break down the entire investigation into the Red Fort blast to really understand what happened, who was behind it, and the massive conspiracy it was just one piece of. So, the story kicks off on what seemed like a totally normal Monday evening. You've got a Hyundai i20 just moving along with traffic near the Red Fort metro station, and then, boom, it just vanishes in a massive ball of fire. The blast just tears through the street, this deafening roar that marks the beginning of just absolute devastation. And the human cost, well, it was just staggering. The first reports that came in confirmed that at least 13 people had been killed right there in the explosion. And on top of that, more than 20 others were injured. It just sent this shockwave of grief and, frankly, terror across the entire city. As investigators started picking through the wreckage, the big question wasn't just about the damage that was done right there. No, it was about what was coming next. Was this some lone, desperate act? Or was this the terrifying first move in a much bigger and deadlier campaign? Well, the investigation pretty quickly led to a revelation that was so shocking, it just turned the whole case upside down. See, the people behind this, they weren't who anyone expected. This was something totally different, something really unsettling. What's being called a white-collar terror module. And this is where it gets really jarring. I mean, look at this contrast. The bomber wasn't some shadowy figure from the fringes of society. Nope. He was a member of one of our most trusted professions, a healer, who somehow had become a killer. And the forensics from the blast site, well, they left zero room for doubt. DNA tests officially identified the man behind the wheel of that car bomb as Dr. Umar Anabi, a physician all the way from Kashmir. Okay, so this brings us to a really key tactic in modern terrorism, using what they call clean skins. These are people, often educated professionals just like doctors, who have absolutely no criminal record. They can move around freely, rent apartments, buy cars, all without raising a single red flag. It makes them be absolute perfect undercover operatives. And listen to this quote from investigative sources. It tells you everything about just how deep his radicalization went. According to them, Dr. Anabi wasn't just some guy who got roped in. He was a core driving force of this doctor gang. They actually called him the most committed, most radicalized member of the entire cell. So, the big question is, how did investigators connect a blast site in Delhi to this complex, white-collar terror module with links all over the world? All right, let's follow the evidence trail and see how they did it. The investigation turned into this massive, multi-agency effort, and every single piece of evidence was absolutely critical. You're talking about the mangled wreckage of the car, CCTV footage that tracked the bomber's final hours, and even the discovery of a second vehicle, a red Ford EcoSport, that was also linked to Dr. Anabi. But, the path wasn't easy. Forensic experts pointed out that the emergency response itself, using water to douse the massive fire, may have accidentally washed away some of the key chemical traces, making it that much harder to figure out the exact explosive recipe they used. Answering this question was absolutely crucial, because the type of explosive used, well, that could reveal everything about the plot, how sophisticated it was, where it came from, and maybe, just maybe, who was backing these guys. And what the analysis found was deeply, deeply unsettling. The sheer force of that explosion, it suggested something way more powerful than the usual homemade stuff. The analysis pointed towards high-grade military explosives, which raises the chilling possibility of a foreign hand and maybe even direct state sponsorship from Pakistan. And that foreign connection? Turns out it was just the tip of the iceberg. This was never about just one car bomb. The evidence started to reveal a terrifying, large-scale plan for a whole series of coordinated attacks all across Delhi. So check out this timeline. It shows the plot had been in the works for months. I mean, the cell was scouting the Red Fort way back in January for an attack on India's Republic Day. But a massive police raid in Jammu and Kashmir just days before the blast really messed up their plans. Cops seized thousands of kilos of explosives. It seems pretty clear that this police action totally panicked the remaining guys and forced them to rush their attack. The scale of the carnage they intended becomes crystal clear when you look at their hit list. The targets included some of Delhi's most iconic and crowded places, national landmarks like India Gate and super busy public markets. The goal, without a doubt, was to maximize casualties and strike at the very heart of the nation. So the investigation uncovered this clear international network. You had handlers based in Pakistan giving instructions to the module. It was linked to terror groups like Jaish Mohammed, which has a long history of attacks in the region, and an al-Qaeda affiliate. And get this, operatives like Dr. Anavi had even traveled to Turkey to meet their handlers. This confirms it was a well-coordinated, cross-border operation. An attack like this, it sends shockwaves through a society that go far beyond just the blast site. So let's take a look at the immediate fallout and the larger strategic conversation it started about security and intelligence. The reaction online was incredibly fast. Over in the state of Assam, police arrested 15 different people. And what was their alleged crime? Posting celebratory or just plain offensive stuff on social media about the deadly attack. The state's chief minister basically declared a zero-tolerance policy. It's a really firm response from the authorities, and it shows they're targeting not just physical threats, but also the spread of online radicalization and hate speech that tries to glorify this kind of violence. Inevitably, after any successful attack, the tough questions start flying, right? How could this have happened? Was this an intelligence failure? Could the security agencies have done more to stop the bombing at the Red Fort from ever happening? But a lot of security analysts argue that view is just too simplistic. They point out that these terror groups, they only have to get lucky once. The intelligence agencies, they have to be successful every single time. And in this case, they actually came pretty darn close. And this leads to a totally different way of looking at it. Instead of seeing the blast as this singular failure, this argument reframes it as the desperate final act of a much larger conspiracy that was already falling apart. Those police raids that seized that huge stash of explosives, they likely saved countless lives by preventing a whole series of much deadlier, coordinated attacks. Which leaves us with this really lingering, difficult question. I mean, this attack showed that the face of terror can be that of a doctor, a professional, your neighbor. As these groups keep recruiting clean skins, how can any society truly protect itself from a threat that looks just like everyone else?